It's time to get your checking account to zero with free checking from PenFed. That's zero ATM fees, zero balance requirements, and zero time spent waiting for your paycheck to direct deposit because you can receive it up to 2 days early. Open your account with just $25 and see how big zero can be. Apply online today at PenFed.org/free checking. Early direct deposit eligibility may vary between pay periods and timing of payers' funding. To receive any advertised product, you must become a member of PenFed, insured by NCUA.
This episode of the podcast is brought to you by Bear Boat Alaska. Up your DIY hunting game with one of their 37-foot adventure yachts. You and 5 of your friends can hunt, fish, set crab pots, shrimp pots, and take DIY to the next level. Bear Boat Alaska is locally owned by a Ketchikan resident who lives here year-round. Call Larry at 907-617-4542 or go to bearboatalaska.com. That's B-A-R-E boatalaska.com and tell Larry you heard about it on this podcast. Welcome back to the podcast. I have Chris Neville from Go Hunt on. Once you're finished listening to this podcast, make sure you go over to YouTube and check out Nothing But Daylight, which is the film about this hunt that will recap a little bit, I guess. And then you can also listen to the North to Alaska episode of the Big Hunt Guys podcast. Thanks for being on here, Chris.
Yeah, thanks for having me, and I appreciate it.
So what was kind of the takeaway? Because they can get the full recap by watching the video and then listening to the podcast. What was kind of your biggest takeaway from Alaska?
I mean, honestly, my biggest takeaway would be from just like how attainable and manageable Alaska hunt is. I think for a lot of people, even myself going into this hunt, like Alaska was kind of intimidating. Like it is definitely tough, all the logistics and things you need to do, but it's a lot more attainable. And I think it's a good opportunity that a lot of people can take advantage of and maybe not as intimidating as a lot of people think. I mean, for me, I thought the hardest part was just figuring out logistics. Once you have your logistics down, it's just like any normal hunt. But yeah, just being attainable and more manageable than I thought was kind of my biggest takeaway from it.
How long have you been hunting? Is it something you've been doing since you were a little kid?
Yeah, so I've been hunting since I was 12 years old. I grew up in Iowa, so I first started out whitetail hunting. And then obviously doing like the over-the-counter stuff in Colorado once I got into college. And then about 6 years ago, I moved out west here in Las Vegas where Go Hunt headquarters is, and been doing Western hunting for probably like the last 6-7 years mainly.
Is Colorado not considered Western hunting?
Yeah, Colorado too. Yeah, I probably went to Colorado the first time, I want to say I was like 21.
Okay.
So 8 years ago.
Yeah, being up here, it's hard to kind of tell what people consider Western hunting or where Western hunting starts. Is it like the plains? Is it, when you get to Colorado and Wyoming, that's your Western hunting? Or is it Ohio or Iowa, whatever? It's a weird thing, but.
Yeah, Colorado, I'd say is the cutoff. Nebraska, I'd say you're Midwest. Colorado. Yeah.
So there's another one. It's Western hunting, Midwest hunting, and then South hunting, or what's the other one? No one just.
That's what I think. Out east hunting.
Out east. Okay, good.
Yeah.
And then Alaska's its own thing.
And Alaska's its own beast for sure.
That's good. So if there's anything that maybe prepared you most, you said that, and it is hunting is hunting. You still got to pay attention to the same basic things. Is there one thing that is the most consistent in all of the hunting that you've done that makes you think, okay, if I could take control of this, or if I master this, then I'm going to be good pretty much anywhere I hunt?
Yeah, I mean, the thing I like to think about or worry about the most is stuff that I can control, which is usually how well I can shoot a bow and how well I can shoot a rifle. So the things in a hunt that I can control myself and stuff that I can practice and know when that moment comes, the stuff that I can control, I'm going to execute on that perfectly. Because a lot of the times you're going to have, especially in Alaska, Mother Nature. You can't control the weather. You can't control how many days you're sitting in your tent. But you can control when that moment comes, taking opportunity and maximizing it to the best of your ability. So, like, the stuff that I like to focus on is like my shot. Whether that's archery, rifle, making sure that I'm completely dialed in those places. Because I see that as like kind of like the only thing that I can really control during a hunt. A lot of the stuff just like starts to happen and snowballs a little bit, but yeah, those are like the main area that I like to hone in on most of the time.
Do you have a lot of gear turnover? Actually, I should say weapon turnover. Some people will get the new bow every year. It seems like they kind of do that with rifles too, but then there's also this idea of this is my trusty old rifle. It and I have killed so many animals together. I trust it and I feel very confident with it. It doesn't necessarily seem like a lot of people adopt that when it comes to archery, because it's get the newest and greatest thing rather than, man, I trust this bow so much. Right. So where does that play in?
Yeah. I think it varies between people. I mean, I kind of nerd out on archery. That's kind of like where I like to specialize in. So I like getting new stuff and trying new things just to see if I can become that much better of a shot. But as for like rifle, I use the same rifle just because I know it's set up, ready to go, and it does the job. But for some archery, I seem to play around a lot more with that. Whereas like Brady in the office, who's like mule deer rifle hunting, like he has 5 different rifles. He's trying different scopes. But yeah, I like to play around a little bit just to see if I can be a better shot with something else. But I mean, it is tough when you get a bow that shoots really good and you're like, man, I don't know if I can set this one down for a new one.
So when you're going on a trip like this, say Alaska, how do you know what to take? Like what makes the cut for this epic, your first ever big game hunt in Alaska, wasn't it?
Yeah. So how we prepared, like I went with Trail, and he's been Western hunting for 20 plus years. And he had a bunch of buddies. He's gone to Alaska before, so I was kind of piggybacking off him for ideas and like what to bring. And I kind of looked at it as I was bringing similar gear as I would in like a backcountry elk hunt. Like I was keeping it fairly lightweight, bringing the same gear. And obviously once you got out there, we learned that we could definitely bring more stuff for sure, especially in the food category. Mm-hmm. Like we had a lot more weight that we could bring out, but I just thought the best thing I could do is just look at it as like a backcountry hunt and pack similar to how I would for backcountry mule deer, backcountry elk.
Mm-hmm. Was there something that it's going to be a little bit of a difference? You know, people talk about rain and people talk about rain gear and, you know, only taking one pair of socks for a backcountry hunt. But then, you know, in Southeast Alaska specifically, the people come up and I knew it was going to be rainy, but I still only packed one pair of socks. And so I only brought one pair of socks and I was drenched, or I had a water resistant jacket rather than waterproof, or even the waterproof jacket failed. So was there something that was definitely Alaska needed, or that you varied a little bit to make sure that you were prepared for the Arctic?
I for sure would have brought more clothes. Like you were saying, I think I brought one pair of pants. And as you know, probably more than anyone, is Alaska is very wet and a lot of stuff is not dry. Even when we're hanging up a tent, we can't have a fire. We didn't have anything to burn either. So your stuff just constantly stays wet all the time. So I think if I would have had like 2 pairs of pants, you know, maybe like 2 pairs of boots, just so I could like swap in between, because you're right, your stuff gets drenched. Yeah. There's no getting around that.
It's so hard to get warm when you're always damp, and then you can't dry anything out, like you said. A buddy of mine bought one of those Seek Outside hot tents, and we hiked it up a mountain once and set it, because those things are pretty light. Just brought a couple of those pressed sawdust bricks and got a little fire started, and being able to dry out when it was foggy was... I hate the term game changer because it's so overused. Like these are a pair of socks. Like it's not a game changer. It's just socks. The different logo on it, you know, but a hot tent is unbelievable. Were you wishing for something like that or luxuries, or do you kind of push that stuff from your mind so you don't get distracted?
I mean, I always hope to have them, but I mean, I've done enough backcountry hunts where I'm fairly comfortable with being uncomfortable. And I think that's something that obviously takes time for a lot of people to kind of get used to that. Because, I mean, you're not comfortable most of the time, and then just learning to like cope with that and be comfortable with being uncomfortable. I've gotten like fairly decent at doing that in the last, 7 years or so. So, I mean, it doesn't bother me too much. And I brought enough clothes where I was like in the tent, I had dry clothes on, but it was mostly like when we're going out to hunt, I had to put on my wet pants again, or my wet boots again, or maybe a wet pair of socks.
Mm-hmm. Do you think that mental toughness is something that you're kind of born with and you can only improve so much, or is it something that can 100% be learned? Like, you look at someone like a Cam Hanes or, like, okay, there's Cam Hanes and there's kind of everybody else. But where are you on how you can hone in some of those skills or become more comfortable with being uncomfortable?
Yeah, I think I don't know, that is a good question. I don't know. I feel like, being born and raised in Iowa, it's kind of a blue collar, like we're just kind of like taught that at a young age, like being tough and being mentally tough. I play a lot of sports, so that aspect's always been like a part of my life. And I do think it can be learned to some extent. I think you have to do it a lot. I think you have to be in those situations where you're uncomfortable to learn like how to cope with it. Like I even tell people just like doing something uncomfortable every day, whether that's like even just working out, like you're building off something, just like one thing a day. And like usually that for me is just like, after work, I work out every single day. There's some days like I don't feel like doing shit, but I keep pushing to do that just because I know there's going to be a time where I'm sitting in a tent and it's raining out and I don't want to go out, but you might have to do that.
Yeah. It's such an important thing for people to kind of know, especially kids. As a high school teacher, I'm very aware of the fact that some people think they just don't have it. Like you have to believe that you do, even if you don't, that belief, and then you end up fortifying yourself or whatever. But I just can't imagine an existence in which we don't test ourselves and encourage each other or encourage people to test themselves. It's just, I don't understand it. I can't get my head around the fact that we're trying to make things a lot easier and we're minimalizing the opportunities for us to test ourselves, because how else are you going to get any sort of confidence? You do it by doing difficult things.
Right. Yeah. And that's how you learn the most too. That's what you mess up a lot of times, and that's how you're going to learn the most for yourself, is by trying stuff and messing up and then fixing it.
Mm-hmm. So how afraid of you were messing up on this trip? Because you're finally making caribou happen. Were you at all thinking about, well, what happens if I don't notch the tag? Or you thought that this is as close to a slam dunk as you can get?
I mean, I think I was pretty nervous just because I knew, I didn't know how many more times am I going to have this chance in my life, It's like a very, very big opportunity. You're going into some country that's incredible. You may never do this hunt again. So I was more nervous than the pressure on myself of, making it a good hunt. I think it was where like most of the nerves were. But from hearing from people that have done this hunt, and the success rate's obviously pretty high for caribou. So I mean, we brought a rifle along as well as our bow. So I mean, we had a fairly good idea that we'd be successful. With archery, we come to find out when we got up there, like, oh shit, this is going to be a lot harder than we thought. Just with the terrain that caribou live in. But I think the most nerve-wracking part was just like the pressure of, how cool this opportunity and how big this opportunity is, and I might not ever do this hunt again.
Yeah, the openness. I did one caribou hunt last March, and it was just on a snow machine. It was -30. You just kind of ride around until you find something, and then you get after it. But archery seems like it's very difficult. My wife had an elk tag in Wyoming and went down there, and we're hunting. And 2 weeks before I went down there, elk on the game cam. She camped out there, and they're bugling, and she had one like come into the call, and then it took off. And so I was like, this is so. It's going to be awesome. We know where they're at. We've done the work. I'm going to call one in. She's going to shoot it with a bow. It's going to be perfect. But then they went silent. And then it was just nothing. We didn't hear one. Not even at night did we hear anything. And it just seemed like, how can anybody ever get an elk after the first couple of days of when the season opens? It's just impossible. And those things can move so fast and be invisible in the forest, but they're massive. Like, how does this even function? How does this work? And it seems like a caribou stock, when there's nothing to really hide behind, seems similar in that. How does this going to work out?
Yeah, and I think the thing about caribou country, the tundra, that is no easy task walking across that shit. Oh, man.
Yeah.
You look at it like I'm from from Iowa, the Midwest, and it looks like rolling prairie almost. You're like, oh, that caribou's over there. It'll take me 20 minutes to go over there. 2 hours later, I've gone like 1 mile.
Yeah.
Just sludging through that.
Yeah. Yeah, there's what you're familiar with, and then there's a whole another level, and that's, it's said so many different times in Alaska's, oh, it's a different animal, it's a different beast, and yeah, it is, and you don't really know until you get there. And Southeast is way different than up north too, because our muskegs here, you step into it and then automatically you're hip deep. It's just crazy, and you got to figure out how to walk on that. But up north, the tussocks, that's even different. It's just a different thing. You mentioned about not being able to maybe do the hunt ever again, and that wasn't really it's a good segue to the fact that hunt has been closed down thanks to a vote by the Rural Subsistence Board, which is too bad because it's not based in science. The federally qualified hunters account from between 2 and 7% of the annual take, and there's a no closed season on bulls. The cow season is open for 8.5 months. And so if it was really about, running out of caribou, then those things would be addressed, not the non-local hunters. Knowing that different people have different perspectives about hunting in general or trophy hunting, how does that impact your kind of travel ethics, I guess, knowing that you're going to go into someone else's backyard or someone else's state, and there's a whole different dynamic when it comes to hunting? How does that impact how you approach it?
I mean, we heard from people up there that a lot of these like small villages, some people aren't so welcome to non-resident hunters. We were in a little town called Kotzebue. It's a small fishing town. And so, people told us, don't be, wearing decked out in camo, just kind of look like a regular person, be nice, be respectful. Understand, like we're playing in their playground, essentially, that they've been there for way longer than we have. So I think just being respectful and, kind of taking in what people told us, maybe, not being so flashy with all of our new gear and the stuff that we had with us, and kind of laying low was the way we took it. But I mean, we were fortunate enough where when we flew into Kotzebue, like it was 30 minutes and we were on a point out. Whereas, like, I know depending on the weather, some people get stuck in those towns for days on end. And luckily, yeah, we just got into Kotzebue and we were flown out right away, so we didn't spend too much time, except on the back end. I was in Kotzebue for like 2 or 3 days. But for the most part, I mean, I stayed at this lady's house, essentially. She was renting out rooms to hunters. I just stayed at her house, hung out, didn't really do too much, got some breeze. But yeah, just kind of being respectful, laying low, not coming off as like an arrogant non-resident hunter was kind of the way I took that approach.
Yeah, I think that's the thing that some people, I go back and forth. As someone who writes in the outdoor space, I'm advocating for Alaska by telling Alaska stories, but at the same time, I don't want someone to show up at my spot or whatever on the river, air quotes. But it is a difficult thing to navigate. Some people are going to be welcoming of it, and they understand that they can't have it both ways. Ketchikan is a big tourist destination. So while we don't like it when there's 15,000 extra people in town who are crowding the ways and you can't go eat at the fish house because everyone's trying to eat at the fish house, without that, what would we do? There would be no economic engine now that logging's out. And so some of these rural communities understand the need to, it's not selling your soul, it's just understanding that this is an opportunity to help with the economic engine. And as long as we aren't, hurting ourselves with the herd, then this is something that we can do and manage and encourage people to respectfully use the resource. But I don't know. Do you find that it's like that down south, or what's the difference?
No, I don't think down in the lower 48, you don't deal with too much of that. I mean, the only problem you deal with is like resident hunters being pissed because you're in their spot. Like they think they own the spot because it's, they're a hunk of public land that they've gone to the last 150 years. And I mean, with that too, I think it's just like a good moral compass or a good like backcountry ethics. Like if someone's already there, Like my rule of thumb is well, they're here first, they beat me to the spot, then I need to go somewhere else where they have like enough room for them to have their hunt in that area. And I know sometimes people have problems with that, and they're like, no, this is my spot, I was here first. But yeah, a lot of the times if there's people in spots, I don't like to hunt around people. I like to be in my own area without anyone around. So if they beat me to the spot, they beat me to the spot. So I got to go somewhere else. That's kind of how I look at it.
How do you think the outdoor content and the social media world have impacted that? Because we want to share things. You know, you as a leader at Go Hunt and me as a freelance writer, we want to talk and we want to share our experiences and we want to write about it. How does that impact the whole everything? Because obviously we want to share our experiences. We want to help other people. Like you wouldn't have even, if it was the 1960s, you wouldn't have read about something on the internet about caribou and figured out a way to go there. So how do we deal with that contradiction or that back and forth?
After years of fine print contracts and getting ripped off by big wireless providers, if we've learned anything, it's that there's always a catch. So when I first heard that Mint Mobile offers premium wireless starting at just $15 a month, I thought, what's the catch? But after talking to them and using their service, it all made sense. There isn't one. Mint Mobile's secret sauce is that they're the first company to sell wireless service online only. They cut out the cost of retail stores and pass those sweet savings directly to you. For anyone who hates their phone bill, Mint Mobile offers premium wireless for just $15 a month. I was hesitant about having to get a new phone and a new phone number, but with Mint, you can use your own phone with any Mint Mobile plan and keep your same phone and your same phone number along with all of your existing contacts. Mint Mobile gives you the best rate whether you're buying for one or for a family, and at Mint, families start at 2 lines. All plans come with unlimited talk and text plus high-speed data delivered on the nation's largest 5G network. Switch to Mint Mobile and get premium wireless service starting at just $15 a month. To get your new wireless plan for just $15 a month and to get the plan shipped to your door for free, go to mintmobile.com/waypoint. That is mintmobile.com/waypoint. Cut your wireless bill to $15 a month at mintmobile.com/waypoint.
I mean, I would look at it as we're all trying to accomplish the same thing, and the thing is, we're all limited to what the state is offering. The state comes up with the quotas, they make the numbers, and then we buy the tags. And then it's tough for me just because that's all I usually do is I'm a non-resident, I hunt in a lot of different states. And it's tough for me to understand some of the other side because I look at it as non-residents, we're paying an extra fee, right? We're paying more money to hunt in your state, which then goes back into conservation. And it's not like the state's giving us the tag. Like they came up with the allocation for us to hunt there. So it's not like it's our fault and we're giving all this money to that state that helps you out. I mean, the only problem I usually see is like residents hating that because they're seeing more people go into these states, which in the end of the day, your state's the one that controls those numbers. They're the ones that allocate the number of tags that non-residents can hunt. So I don't know, it's kind of tough, but I get both sides, but I'm probably more in like the non-resident just because that's what I do more often. Because Nevada's a tough state to hunt. You don't usually get tags in Nevada, so I'm hunting all the surrounding states every single year. And it's tough because, I mean, that is kind of like our job at Go Hunt is we're a research-based company providing information to all these different hunters that, you know, some may know a lot, some may know hardly anything. But at the end of the day, it's the state that's deciding how many of us can go hunt in different states. Mm-hmm. They're the ones allocating the tags.
Yeah, I think there's an ethical way you can do things too. Like you can provide information, or you can be, you know, a prick about it, or you could, you know, not tell anybody anything. It's kind of a weird space, but I don't think it has to be something that makes you second guess what you're doing. I think acknowledging and understanding the two sides of the argument, think, okay, well, I will do this and I will go forward and I will reflect. I'm kind of a weird spot because I grew up on Prince of Wales Island, which is now on the map as a great place for black-tailed deer and black bear. Kodiak's getting a lot more popular, has been the last couple of years, which has been great, fewer people. But as a Ketchikan resident, people in Prince of Wales don't necessarily like Ketchikan residents so much. Like, we're kind of the outsiders. And so while I'm a resident of Alaska because I live in Ketchikan, some people in Prince of Wales think, well, you're Ketchikan, you're not Prince of Wales. And so I'm an outsider. It's just a weird feeling. But
yeah, it is. And kind of like how I was mentioning before, I think, like, if there's someone in the spot that I'm going to in a different state, like, I'll go to a different spot. Like, I'm not sitting right next to this guy hunting the same spot. And I get where the residents of these states, they've been going to the same spot for 10 years in a row, and then all of a sudden they get to the trailhead, there's 50 more cars there than normal. But, I mean, hunting, you got to be adaptive, and you got to be able to move and be willing. I think that's something I've gotten better as I've gotten older. I know back in my younger days, like, I would get pissed if I found somebody, like if I ran into somebody out hunting, and it's like they have just as much the right to be there as I do. There's no difference. It's just like being more accepting of that. And a lot of times, if you're not like such an ass to somebody and like you're sharing information, they're sharing information with you, like you can both give each other some like useful information for like a hunt or a type of hunt you're going on, and you can both find success.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think having that attitude is huge too, because at some point you might need help, or
right,
whatever. And so just having that attitude of, okay, I'm not going to take out my frustrations on whoever I see as a hunter. And it's also amazing to me still, everybody talks about you have to go a little bit further, right? Yet you have to do the work. But then there's so many people who still don't do that. And I saw that in Wyoming too. And it's so much easier to make your way around. I mean, there's definitely some rugged terrain, but it's so much easier to make it through the woods there than it is, climbing a mountain here where you can't see anything and there's brush everywhere. And yet people still aren't willing to get out of the vehicles, just driving around, calling. And it's just, I think, man, like you could be an out-of-stater, you could be in Colorado, so it only took you 2 hours to drive here, but man, make the most of that. Like, why aren't you getting out a little bit? Why are you... or you come up to Alaska, dude, you have to be willing to get out and suffer a little bit. You paid so much money to come up here. Why are you not walking? Everyone tells you that you have to put forth the effort. Why are you still not doing that?
Yeah, some people are just kind of stuck in like the way they hunt. And that's how we deal with a lot of the customers here. Like, what kind of hunt are you looking for? Are you looking for, hang out with your buddies? Are you looking for a truck hunt? Are you looking for a backcountry hunt where you're going in? There's nothing wrong with either, and you can be successful with both. But just kind of like knowing the style of hunt you like, you're gonna have to like accept some stuff that come with that.
How often do you get an email or a comment that's like, "Hey, Chris, what's the easiest way that I can get the biggest bull?" Do you get that a lot?
Yeah, a lot of it's like, "Hey, I have a deer tag in Colorado. Where should I go? Like, what should I do?" And I'm like, I don't. And that's usually my first thing I say is like, what style of hunt are you looking for? What are you trying to do? What's your goal? Are you trying to shoot something big? You don't really care what you shoot. You're looking to hang out with your buddies and just have like a fun hunt. It's like that really plays in a lot to like where you're going to go and what type of hunt you want.
Yeah. On the flip side of that, I was talking with Brad Brooks a little bit about we glorify that hardcore minimalist sort of hunt. Do you think that's necessary?
No, I know a lot.
Simple. You didn't hesitate.
I know a lot of people that truck hunt, and they're damn good at truck hunting. They shoot just as much stuff as anyone, and they are just really effective at truck hunting. Then I know some people that are really effective at backcountry style hunting. I think it's more of like a preference of what that person likes. Like for me, I like backcountry hunting because I like the adventure. I like being out there, staying out there. I think that gives me, or I feel it gives me like a leg up and just being with the animals all the time. And I just prefer that style of hunting. I just like that adventure aspect. And then as like the truck hunting, I'm not very good at truck hunting. I usually pack the same shit I have on a backcountry hunt as if I'm truck hunting. So I haven't quite figured out the truck hunting and how to be effective at it. Whereas backcountry hunt, I feel like I have a little more knowledge in there, and I can be more effective that way.
Mm-hmm. How about when you don't come back with something? It's so easy for us because we have so many of these memorized phrases and hashtags and, it's just about getting out there and it's just about the experience. How do you handle a lack of success? Or if you're out there and you have a shot, but you decide not to take it? Is that weakness? Is that trophy hunting? Whatever, people get ridiculed for shooting, for holding out for a larger bull or a larger bear. And at the same time, if you don't take the shot, you're criticized as, you're just a trophy hunter. So how do you gauge that, whether you're going to take the shot or not, or handling a failure?
Right. I usually, depending on the area and the kind of tag that I have, I like to set like a reasonable expectation of what opportunity I'm going to get. Like if I know if I have a general season elk tag, like I can say I'm going to hold out for a 350, but like that's not very reasonable for that tag. So having like a realistic like intention of what animal you can possibly take with that tag, I think is important to set it up right off the bat. And then after that, the only thing I try to get out of a hunt is I want an opportunity. I just want an opportunity. And then it comes down to like shooting it or not. If I can get like at least one opportunity and let's say it didn't work out, I still think of that hunt as success because like probably that's my fault why that opportunity didn't come together. Like I did everything I could put it in the right spot and I was given an opportunity, and then if it didn't work out, like I usually blame myself for that. And like if I can get an opportunity, then I'm pretty happy. And for the most part, I try to like maximize that. But like if there's hunts where I don't have a single opportunity, then I really go back to like the drawing board, like what I did, my planning beforehand, the area that I was in. That's when like hunts are pretty frustrating. Mm-hmm. And as for like taking a shot, I've been fortunate enough to hunt with like Brady and Trail, some other guys in the office that are a lot more experienced hunters than I am. And the one thing that I've learned from them is when you do get an opportunity, you need to trust your ability and take a shot. Like, I think there's a lot of times like people tell themselves because it's so nerve-wracking, like, oh, he needs to turn this way, he needs to do this, he needs to do that. But if you've done it long enough, trust your ability and just take a shot. And more than not, you'll be successful that way. Because I found in my younger days, like a lot of times I was like waiting for the perfect shot. And a lot of times that doesn't happen.
Mm-hmm. We have kind of a weird thing up here, like our deer season here in southern southeast Alaska. You can get 4 deer, and you have 5 months to do it. So you don't really pass on much. I mean, if there's a smaller one, you'll pass because you know you're going to get so many more opportunities. And it really comes to play with like spring bear. And Buddy and I were out, and we were pretty close to a pretty nice bear, and we were just watching it. And if it was had one of us had a bow, we would have thought, let's make this happen for sure. But he had his rifle, and we're like, it's a good sized bear, but not a real big bear. And it's May, it's early May. We still have a ton of time left, and so we both felt totally fine with just kind of watching it and took some pictures. And so naturally we made a post, and people were like, why did you take the bear? Like, how would you not? That thing was a bruiser. Where is it? I'm like, I don't know. Like, it was early May. There's still time. Like, once you, I don't know, we don't have to do it now. Then the season ends at the end of this month, and then July and August is off, and then we have the fall bear season in September. So do you think that, and those blueberry bears up in the mountains, that's what I would definitely like to get. Just I've never had one of those. I've had 2 spring bears, so that fall bear that's been eating berries rather than salmon is really intriguing. But how do you think the shortness of the seasons impacts the way people hunt down there? If you were to think that the elk season was, you drew a tag that it was a 4-month season or something like that, how do you think that would impact your approach?
Yeah, I think depending on like the area and like the quality of animals that you have. So like I know in Colorado, like this is a good example, like a 3rd season hunt, what happens is everyone's like holding out for a big deer the whole entire week, and then comes down to like the last 2 days, and like everyone's just shooting like the first buck they see. Which in that case, like I came there I had an expectation of that hunt. Like I'm gonna stick to my guns of like shooting a mature deer is how I look at it. Like I don't want to go shoot a 1-year-old, 2-year-old buck. Whereas like I know some people in those short spans, like a shorter hunt, like a third season Colorado hunt, towards the end of the week, like these guys are shooting anything.
Yeah.
They're shooting like the first buck they see just because like they're non-resident, they're out of state, or like they need to punch their tag. Whereas like, I don't know, I'd much rather stick to like the goal that I had and shooting a mature deer, and that just comes with different people. Like some people back when I was first started hunting, like I wasn't so worried about the size of the animal or a mature animal. Like my intention going into that hunt was like, I'm going to shoot like the first buck that gets me excited.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But yeah, I think the shortness of the week can vary, but I think it's like the area that you're in and like the quality. I know that like if it's like a limited entry tag and you have a week, there'll be people that won't shoot anything just because like they know the potential the unit has, and they're just gonna, if they don't see a big one, they're just not gonna shoot anything.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that maturity to trophy hunting, that can be a pretty short step sometimes.
Right.
What are some things that you've learned kind of from working at Go Hunt as far as expectations, as far as opportunities and things like that? I didn't think there was any sort of value as an Alaskan getting Go Hunt because it seemed like just a preference point strategy type thing. And I've been accruing points in Wyoming. I don't really have a lot of interest in getting like a point in everywhere, but I thought it was just like kind of a point tabulating service, but there's a lot more to it. So what else have you found, experienced, or able to provide?
The biggest thing for me is just having knowledge of all the different Western states and how all their systems work, all the different seasons that they have. And once I came to know all that different knowledge, like you can start to see where there's opportunities that you can get tags every single year. I know like right now there's a lot of people, and it is true that it's getting harder to hunt out west because just of the landscape and the different quotas that the states are putting in, more people are applying. But there's still a ton of opportunity out there, and that's the biggest thing that I've learned from working at Go Hunt is all the different opportunities, learning all the different seasons in each state, all the different species, rifle, archery, and just kind of being able to put together, a season with maybe not having any points in each state and like how to save your points. A lot of it like that strategic way of looking at states and just understanding how states operate. I mean, I've been working it for 5 years and it's taken me 5 years to learn it. Like it's a huge learning curve. And I've just been fortunate that I've been around it for 5 years every single day. So I learned it a lot quicker than normal. Than if I wouldn't have worked here, it'd still be daunting just because every state is so different in how they do their draws and how their seasons work and where those opportunities are.
Yeah, Wyoming it's so incredibly confusing for me. My wife was getting her PhD down there, and so I was spending summers down there, and we thought about doing some hunts down there. And up here, it's so easy. You go to Unit 23, here's what you can get and when. Here's a list, here's your menu. Down there, doing the units by species and by like, was it migration route or whatever it is? So you could be in Unit 9 for elk, but that's 46 for mule deer or something, and the boundaries aren't exactly the same. After my wife and I didn't get didn't fill her elk tag, it was opening day for mule deer rifle, and we were looking at some elk, and we thought, oh well, I think it was a general season elk, and so elk was still open, and so she could have shot a cow elk, but then I checked the boundary real quick, and that boundary, we were in a mule deer boundary, not an elk one. So I was like, oh no, like by 200 yards. Right. But the mule deer boundary went for another mile or so, but the elk one changed, and it was just crazy to be out there. But she shot a pretty nice mule deer. But it's so confusing. I can't even imagine multiplying that by a certain like 5 more states. That's psycho.
Yeah. I know the confusing part with Wyoming too is all the different types that you can get. You have type 1, type 2, type 3, type 5, type 6, type 9. And like the trigger, so like I drew a Wyoming elk tag and I put in for a Wyoming rifle general, knowing that I'm going to bow hunt it. And essentially, like, that's where a lot of people get confused is once you draw a rifle general, all you have to do is get an archery stamp and you can hunt archery season. But you have to put in for the rifle general to get that.
Yeah.
So it's just like a lot of like nuances like that are tricky for a lot of people.
Yeah. I have 3 points in Wyoming for elk, and so I'm starting to get excited about some sort of potential and maybe drawing something where my wife and I had put up game cameras and where she'd seen some and had some opportunities. But I'm thinking, gosh, it would be so much better to do it archery because you can call it's in the rut, but at the same time, if it's $800, $1,000 for the tag. So I'm like, gosh, do I want to like increase the odds of seeing one because it's during rut? But then, there's a tree in the way. This is my $1,000 opportunity, and there's a tree in the way, or it doesn't come in, or something happens. But man, it seems like might be worth the risk. But I have to draw it first, so we're way before that.
I think about like 4 points you can get the rifle general, and then the good thing is if you don't shoot anything archery, you can go back during rifle season.
It's a lot of as a teacher. That's a lot of sub days.
Yeah, right. I'm out. Yeah. I'm going hunting.
People would be like, well, why are you going down to Wyoming? We have so many things to hunt here. It's like, well, yeah, but it's elk, and we do have that. Did you watch the Corey Jacobson elk hunt here?
My God.
I've been there. I got
like it was 2,000 pounds.
Those things are massive. It was a year after I graduated high school. My high school Alaska history teacher went over and shot one there, and he happened to be the principal at that time. He took a couple of my buddies out of school to go over there and help retrieve the elk. And I thought, man, that's 1 year off, man. If I would have been a senior, then I would have been excused from school to help retrieve an elk from that island. But I drew that once and went there, and we didn't see or hear anything. It was October. We didn't do it archery, and weather was beautiful, which is nice. But that place is rugged and pretty. Oh my God. Pretty crazy.
That looks like a tough hunt, and there's nothing fun about packing an elk off.
No, anywhere. And that's the thing too about up here, and I'm sure you felt it when you were up in the Arctic, is that it's a different level of isolation. There's no let's walk this way and we'll hit a road, or maybe we can get some cell phone reception or something. Like once you're out there, down here it's called a Coast Guard type rescue. There's no in between, and it's your things can get real serious really, really quick, and then time becomes, real consideration. No. Did you feel like a different level of severity when you were up there?
Yeah, I mean, definitely the isolation factor. Just like flying in there and just knowing there's not a lot of people you're going to rely on to help you besides the people you have within your camp.
Yeah.
But I think that's what makes it fun though, Alaska. I'm all for that type of adventure.
Yeah. Got to do it. All right, man. We're coming up on time for me to go help my mother move and take stuff to the dump and whatnot. The son duties never end, but that's gladfully do it for all the stuff that they had to put up with right when we were kids. Right. So give me like a pitch for the podcast, the YouTube channel, the Go Hunt, all that stuff.
Yeah. So right now, my big thing I'm trying to push for our YouTube channel is head over to our YouTube channel, Go Hunt. We're almost to 100K subscribers, so I'm really pushing that. We have a ton of Go Hunt originals. In my opinion, the best hunting videos out there to watch. We have like 33 that you can watch on our YouTube channel, along with weekly posts that we post from gear reviews to information on how to hunt out west, a lot of informative content. Then our podcast, Big Hunt Guys, it can be found on all the different streaming platforms, which we just started like 5 months ago or so you can check that out.
Excellent. Well, thanks, man. Appreciate your time. I'm glad you had a good time up here, enjoyed it, and sounds like you weren't one of those a-hole local guys or non-local guys that got that shut down up there. It was crazy listening to some of the testimony, and they're saying these non-residents that are coming up here, and they had no interest in keeping the meat, and they were just rude and leaving trash all over. And I'm thinking, oh man, it doesn't matter what the science says. If you have your federal subsistence board listening to that sort of stuff, they're going to side with the locals anytime. So, again, appreciate you being on here. Big fan of the Go Hunt stuff. So, we'll take care.
Yeah, thanks for having me, man. Appreciate it.
Yeah.
Later.